Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome for the third section of Rainbows of Emotion, that is emotional stability. And a few people would be new to this section and few would have attended. So, I welcome everyone. And before we get into the section, I would like to introduce a speaker for today's section, the Rainbows of Emotion, that is emotional stability speaker. It's Keerthana Swaminathan. She is a sports and exercise psychologist and the founder of Think, Train and Perform. She works with state and national level athletes for mental conditioning. She also works with school children on behavioral modification through physical activity and sports. Apart from that, Kirtana also works with many organizations in terms of performance psychology. She is also the author of When I Look Back, it was 21 already. She is a marathon and marathon runner and a cyclist. We are very happy to welcome Kirtana Swaminathan for today's section of emotional stability.
Thank you, Kavita.
Thank you.
I am just going to share the screen. Can we start, or do you want me to wait for another 2 minutes?
No, no,
I think
you can start,
can
Kirtana.
start,
It
right?
sounds like
Okay.
yep. Yeah.
Okay. I hope all of you can see the screen. So it says emotional stability. Now, emotional stability is a vast topic. It's a very vast topic, and it's a very, very important topic. Uh, without which I don't think a lot of our decisions can be made. It's often misconstrued. A lot of people misunderstand what emotional stability is. So I'm going to be talking to you about what is and what is not emotional stability, and I'm going to give you just a few pointers as to how we can maintain our emotional stability, right? Uh, so one thing which is very important is for us to understand what the stability means, right? Uh, See, for most of us who think that emotional stability means not going through that emotion at all, it's a wrong, it's a wrong understanding of emotional stability. Emotional stability doesn't mean suppressing your emotion and not feeling pain, not feeling a negative emotion at all. No, it doesn't mean that at all. Okay. Emotional stability means, even when you go through such stress, even when you go through such negative emotions, pain, negative emotions, you are able to handle it in a calm manner and you're still stable. Okay. If you notice, I put up a picture over here. It's about a picture, it's about a person who's getting boxed, right? So, emotional stability is more like, even when you get boxed, even when you get punched and you fall down at the ground, you don't panic. You need to stay calm. That's what is emotional stability, right? That's a metaphor I can relate to for easier terms. Okay. Now this emotional stability. See, most of the time when we go through stress, when we go through pressure, and when there is a certain level of change that we go through, right? It can be due to COVID-19, which is in the current scenario. It could be something which is very personal, maybe some personal issue at home. It could be some office pressure. So all those are stressful moments, right? So although we do feel that pain, what happens to most of us is things become very turbulent. We won't be able to make good decisions. We won't be able to decide most of the things. In fact, that's the time we tend to become a little more closed. We don't feel like actually talking to people, right? We become very unstable, so to say, correct? So similarly, over here for emotional stability, the way we would have to handle this particular situation would be in a stable and a calm manner, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you or telling you today, right? So simply put, emotional stability means staying grounded in times of stress, knowing how to channel your emotions and manage your emotions, right? I'm not going to be talking about managing emotions today because that is a separate topic altogether. I'm going to be connecting stability to management, but today it's more about how you can be so calm, and what are the actual benefits of emotional stability. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, so just to actually tell you what emotional stability, it's in very simple terms, it is just staying grounded in times of stress. So even when you go through stress, you don't tend to fall. You're staying balanced and you're able to still think straight. Okay, so that is emotional stability. Now, most important thing, why is it so important? Why are all of us, I think, in today's world, if you see newspaper articles, I think it's all about mental strength, mental stability, emotional stability, right? Why is it so important? If you notice, most of the decisions that we make, right, is based on emotions. We take emotional decisions, whether it's at work, whether it's at home. Most of us are influenced by our emotions, whether it's positive or negative, right? From shopping to recruiting a person, we do have emotional decisions. Believe it or not, it is.
Hello, we are not hearing your voice. A sudden
Kindly hold on.
disturbance happened.
Yeah. Kindly hold on. And, she will be redoing herself. There is a technical problem. So requested the speaker.
Am I audible now? Is it
Yeah,
clear?
you are audible now. Yeah, it's clear now, Kirtana.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for telling me. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the chat at all.
Not a
uh,
problem.
Yeah, I think here it is. So, why is our emotional stability important? So, like I said, emotional stability helps us make better decisions, right? Imagine if you were angry. Does anger make you take bad decisions? Yes, most of the time it does, especially when we are not emotionally stable. But anger can also propel us to take really good decisions, right? It depends on how emotionally stable we are. Are we going to make that anger help us take a better decision, right? So that stability, see, anger again is not a bad emotion, but the way we behave or the way we perceive the anger can make it bad. So let me explain this maybe at the end, wherein I'll talk to you about how we can actually become a little more stable. When I'm explaining that, I'll explain this as well to you. So the first thing why this emotional stability is important is that it helps us make good decisions. It makes us take efficient decisions, decisions that we may not actually regret, right? So it increases the ability to make decisions. That's very important, especially in an organization at a leadership level. What is the most important is to take decisions, right? As a head of the family, it's very important for us to make decisions, and every single minute of our life is ruled by decisions that we make. So imagine, you being able to make efficient decisions, right? And in an experiment which was done, recent research which was done in FedEx, right? They did a research in terms of, they had an intervention for emotional stability, and they found that almost 70% of the employees were able to make better decisions, right? In a very efficient manner, and they had increased motivation. They wanted to work more, they were more enthusiastic just because of this emotional stability. Can you imagine just one aspect changing a lot about the way we think and we making our decisions, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is it increases our quality of life. Now, why do you think it increases our quality of life? Simply put, we end up thinking a lot better about ourselves. Imagine we are in a blissful state of mind all the time, and even when we are angry, we channel it into something which is very productive and very nice. Even if we are low, it's only for a few minutes or a few minutes or a few seconds, and we turn it into something very efficient and effective, which means you're going to enjoy a better quality of life, right? There's going to be lesser, let's say arguments at work, at home, lesser pain that you will be going through, right? Which means there's an increase in quality of life. You're going to be, enjoying this good quality of life, right? So that happens. So even in terms of crisis situations, right, you are able to remain extremely calm when the rest of the world is actually panicking about, how they are not able to control the particular situation and how things are going haywire. You tend to remain a lot calmer, and in fact, you end up thriving through the situation. You end up finding solutions through the situation. This is where even your decision making ability comes into play. Since you remain calm, you end up making better decisions, right? So even during a crisis situation, let's say everyone's performance goes low, your performance can become higher or probably remain the same, right? So that's how being calm changes the entire way we behave as well. Therefore, an increased self-esteem, you think a lot better about yourself, you become a lot self-confident, right? I know the question that most of us have is, why should I be emotionally stable? Why is this so important? And I wanted to break down the reasons because of this, because this is some question that I get asked very, very often, very often. And here we are, increase in emotion management. Like I said, emotion stability is slightly different from emotion management. Although management is nothing but, trying to manage your, or literally controlling, not suppressing, but controlling your emotions, being in charge of your emotions. And stability is balancing them. So management comes within stability, and if you know how to be stable in your emotions, then you would definitely know how to manage your emotions in a very, very good manner, right? Now, what happens is, this increases your threshold. This increases your pressure threshold. Let's say you used to get stressed for a particular reason few years ago, right? And when you tend to manage your emotions better, the same stressful situation may not cause that kind of a disturbance for you, right? So that is how emotion management actually works, and that's how important emotional stability can also help you, right? Now, the most important point, we know it's important, we know what this emotional stability is. How do I really work on it, right? And this is going to be longest part. Understanding why it helps, understanding what the stability is, all those are the easy portions, right? How do I really work on it? That's what we're going to look at today, right? The first thing is, you need to understand your emotions. I'm not saying be aware of your emotions, that also is important, but first understand what your emotions are, understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling that, right? If you have a paper and pen with you, then please write it down. I'm going to be telling you the meanings of the emotions that we normally go through. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen so that I can talk. Just a second. Yeah. So we have, there are 8 basic emotions that we have. There are a few basic emotions that all of us go through, right? Happiness, the first one, right? Do all of you know why you feel happy? Can you just take a piece of paper and write down, usually when you become happy, why do you become happy? Just take a sheet of paper and write it down. Why do you become happy when you feel happy? Why do you feel happy when you are happy? What makes you feel happy? I'll just give another minute so that it will be easy for you to write it down. Okay. So I'm going to tell you why we become happy why we feel happiness, right? We feel happy because, um, when we get something that we want or when we get something beyond our expectation, we feel very happy, right? So this happiness is when, let's say, there are times when you feel joy, you feel content, you feel satisfied. That's probably also because you're helping another person out. So what happens is you end up feeling a positive change in yourself, and basically your stress level comes down, right? So why do you feel happy? You feel happy when you get something that you want, or something that is something beyond your expectation. Okay, so that's when you get happy. So anytime, I think all the examples that you've written in your sheet of paper, right, when you read that, if you notice, either you've gotten things that you've expected, or you've gotten things that is much better than your expectation, right? Then you have the second one, which is sadness. Okay. So could you write down what are the situations that's made you feel sad? I know as adults, it's very tough for us to, segregate this emotion and say it's happiness, it's sadness, it's anger. Most of us just end up not understanding what we're going through. We just feel stressed out all the time. And I feel it's very important for us to make a note of these things, right? So if you could just write down what's made you feel sad. Okay, that's like the basic emotion. Just please make a note of what has made you feel sad in, let's say, in the last 3 months, and then I'll give you the meaning. Right. So you feel sad when you feel that you've lost something that you had previously. Okay. Let's say you feel that, let's say, people are blaming you for something and you feel sad. Okay. The answer to that is you feel sad because you feel that you've lost that trust that other people had over you. Okay. So that feeling of losing something that you had makes you feel sad. It makes you feel there's a sense of hopelessness over there. So that's what sadness is, right? So if you can relate your examples to the meaning that I've given, then it'll be great. So you can be aware of it. So next time you actually feel sad, you'll be able to relate. Okay, what did I lose here? What did I think I lose here? Was it with me in the first place? Just think about it. Okay. Next emotion comes fear, right? Now, fear is an extremely powerful emotion. And honestly speaking, it's an emotion which was created for survival, right? It's been there for a while. It's been there for decades now, because obviously it's been there for centuries, not even decades. It's been there for centuries now. Let's say even the animals were created with that, because it's something which is extremely important for survival. That's how important it is, right? Let's say a deer sees a lion, it has to get scared and run away, otherwise its life is gone, right? So fear is something which was created uh, because it's part of our nature. It's for survival, right? But what happens to most of us is we get engulfed in fear. We end up, letting fear take over us instead of letting it help us to survive. Okay. So let's say I'll give you an example of the current situation. Let's say the fear COVID-19 situation. I know a lot of athletes who come and told me, "Ma'am, I'm really scared. What if I get the virus?" Right? That fear is going to be there for all of us. So what do? We wear masks, we take the precautions, and we go off, right? We go out, do whatever it is. If we don't have that fear, we're going to be roaming around without the mask, without the sanitizers, and all those precautions. So it is for survival. Now, when this fear increases tremendously, as to, okay, I'm not going to go out at all because there's what if I catch the virus? Although you have taken the precautions, you end up fearing or thinking about it a lot more, right? So that is a little a little more deeper form of fear, which again I think I'll be talking to you about that in terms of emotional regulation session. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the basic fear that all of us go through, which is fear is when you feel you don't have the ability to do a certain thing, right? So when, okay, let's say I have a session, and before a session I'm feeling scared, and that fear could be because I feel I don't have the ability to go and teach or take the session, right? And what does that fear make me do? It probably makes me prepare better. Correct. So fear is caused by the lack, the feeling of not having the ability to do something. Okay, so that is about fear. And I want you to write down instances when you felt scared. Okay, and if you understand the meaning of what I've told you right now, you might be able to relate to it and understand why exactly you feel scared, right? It's very interesting because this is something we do go through on an everyday basis. And in fact, most of our decisions are taken based on all the emotions that I'm talking about and I'm going to talk about as well. So please do write down what makes you get scared, what gives you that fear, right? And please relate it to the definition that I gave you as well. Then we have disgust. Okay. Now, disgust is, I think, in adult words, it's hatred, right? Disgust is when we feel like it's not our type. We feel it's not what you want, right? And simply put, it's a form of hatred. We don't like it, right? That's what is disgust. Uh, so anything that makes you feel like you don't like something, you feel disgusted by it, right? That's the whole thing. So disgust is another emotion that you might be feeling every day, especially you might be feeling it at home, you might be feeling it at work, with the culture, with a person. It could be very normal. So if you can write down what about the person or what about the thing is making you feel disgusted, then you'll understand or what is making you feel offended about the person or the thing that you're disgusted about. It'll be great. Just write it down in a paper, because this will be helpful for the second point I'm going to be talking about. Okay. And then we have surprise. Okay. I don't know as adults how many of us still feel surprised. I think we've missed out on that element. I think it's very important to go back to thinking what made you feel surprised, what made you feel, good. So surprised is when you get something very unexpected, something pleasant, very unexpectedly, right? And it's very important that you go through this situation over and over again because I think it's a very important emotion. And most of us as adults, we just don't feel surprised about anything at all, right? So please write down what made you feel surprised the last time or in over the last 3 months. When did you get surprised? So surprise is nothing but the emotion you feel when something pleasantly unexpected happens. Okay. Okay. And one last, and the I think something we go through very, 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 very frequently is anger, right? Anger is nothing but the feeling of not getting something that you want. Um, okay, so when something very unexpected happens in a negative way, okay, unexpected in a positive way is surprise, unexpected in a negative way is anger. So when that happens, you get angry, right? So anger, I know there's another word that we use which is frustration or irritation. Now frustration or irritation is a little different from anger, although frustration is not part of the basic 6 emotions. I'm going to be telling you the meaning of frustration as well. So anger is when you go through, I mean, you expect something and that doesn't happen, something unexpected yet negative happens. That's when you get angry. And when you don't know the cause for that happening is when you get angry. Let's say you are angry with your child or you're angry with a person's behavior because they are behaving unexpectedly, unpleasantly, and although you've told them that's not good, that's not correct, you don't know why they're still doing it constantly, right? That's when you get angry. So you don't know why that's happening. That's when the anger factor comes in. And irritation is when uh, you are approaching a goal, a certain goal. Let's say for example you're sitting to eat and someone rings the bell, or you're sitting for a class. Let's say for me, for example, my internet was stuck, or my screen was stuck just before I start taking the class, which means my goal was to take the session and the internet is stuck. So the internet is not helping me to reach my goal, or hurdling. There's a hurdle between me and my goal, right? And which is the internet. So I get frustrated, I get irritated. So irritation is when you feel there is a hurdle which is stopping you from reaching your goal. Okay, so that's the difference between anger and frustration. Again, although frustration is not part of the basic 6 emotions, I'm just explaining this to you because I know this is something which we go through very frequently, and people misunderstand anger and frustration to be the same, right? So please write down when are the times you felt angry and when are the times you felt frustrated, right? Okay. So now that we've understood the basic emotions, I'm not saying we've understood the complicated emotions. More or less, these are the emotions that we do go through on an everyday basis. So now that we've understood our emotions and we know this is why we go through a certain emotion, the second way to work on your emotional stability is to know what causes that emotion for you, right? See, why did I say understand your emotions at the first? Why is that the first point and not understand the triggers? Because only when you understand what is that emotion, what gives you happiness, or what makes you frustrated, what makes you angry, will you even know the triggers or the cause for the particular emotion, right? So knowing the cause is trigger is nothing but the cause, what makes you feel a certain way, right? So knowing the cause is extremely important, and having that awareness towards your cause of that particular emotion can make you emote a lot better, and sometimes you will be able to manage that emotion a lot better. So even in the emotional regulation seminar, I'm going to be talking to you about knowing the triggers and everything. So one key aspect to know your triggers is always to introspect. So the moment you go through a certain, I know it's tough for us to admit that we're going through a certain emotion when you're actually going through it, right? Let's say you have a argument, you've yelled at someone, right? So you just had an argument, let's say with a friend or with a colleague, right? And you know you've gotten very very angry, and you've yelled beyond your capacity, right? Now, after the particular situation is over, right? Go back to your desk or probably go back home, spend some, 30 to 40 minutes alone and just revisit the entire situation again, right? When you revisit the situation, what happens is that you understand where the causes are or what triggered that particular emotion. See, let me tell you something, gaining emotional stability is not something that happens overnight. It's something that you have to train yourself to get into, right? I don't know how many of you all are familiar with exercising and working out, but even for you to get the stability in terms of your body, let's say a child starts walking, right? Does the child walk correctly at once, or does he take a long time to walk? Isn't it that he keeps falling down and getting back up to start stabilizing even in his walk, right? It's something as simple as it. Similarly, even we need to keep training ourselves, right? We might go through those just because you've gone through the emotional stability session, and just because you know these 3 pointers, it doesn't mean that you're going to be emotionally stable at once. Not at all, right? It's probably going to take you another 3 months, 6 months, or even a year, depending on how much you work on it, right? To actually become a lot emotionally stable, right? And it's a continuous process. There's no leaving it out there. It's more like a lifestyle shift that you make. It's more of a habitual shift that you make. And one of the most important habits that I've seen would work for knowing your triggers is journaling, right? So every night before sleeping, if you could actually take your book, or every time you have an emotional outburst, be it happiness, anger, sadness, it could be anything, both positive and negative, right? If you can sit and write down what caused that emotion, right? It'll be great, because half of us don't know what causes that particular emotion. And the moment you know what causes that particular emotion, I think it's easy for you to get through it very stably and in a very calm manner. See, most of us end up, let's say, panicking. Most of us end up feeling out of control because we don't know why we are feeling such an emotion, right? For example, given the current situation, I think most of us ended up feeling scared or anxious because we didn't know what caused the entire thing, right? And we didn't even know why are we fearing. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't feel in control of the entire situation, right? Similarly, when we don't know a certain thing, when we don't know a certain cause, right? It's going to be very tough to handle that situation. So it's very important to know the trigger or know the cause, right? So that's the second pointer. And the third pointer, as I've shared on the screen, it is take a third person perspective, right? Now, what is this third person perspective? This is something which is again very very important, and this will happen. The third person perspective will happen only after you get to understand your emotions, you know your trigger or the cause, and only then your third person perspective will come, right? Um, so basically, first person perspective is when you're seeing everything through your eyes, right? Everything is happening firsthand. That's first person perspective. Whereas third person perspective is when you're able to see, okay, second person perspective is when the other person involved is also seeing you, correct? Is looking at everything from his perspective. So let's say I am having a conversation with another person over here. This is the person I'm having this is me, this is the person, right? And seeing the other person through my eyes is first person, right? So basically then what is happening there is I'm only going to know what I am feeling in the entire conversation, right? And then this person, I'm talking about second person perspective. This person looking at everything and looking at me talking or me saying something, that second person perspective wherein he or she feels that empathy, or he or she feels how I'm feeling and why am I talking a certain way, right? That's second person perspective. Whereas let's say I'm the third person and there are two more people here, they are fighting. I'm standing here and from a non-biased, unjudgmental, because I'm not part of the argument between these two people here, right? So from here, I'm giving I'm looking at them, which means I'm going to have a better idea, right? And I'm going to be thinking out of the problem. I'm not going to be stuck in the problem that is going on between these two people, right? So that's a third person perspective, wherein so when you can have this third person perspective is when I said you can start writing your journal, right? When you start writing the cause, just look at how else the situation could have been handled. How else could the situation have been handled? In fact, what you can do is write down your favorite person's name or your role model's name, right? Let's say if you aspire to become like so and so, or like you aspire to become like your mom or your dad. I know most of us have them as our role models. So if you aspire to become like them, then you can write down how would have they handled the same situation, right? If they were in my place, how would they have handled the same situation? That's how you're going to be taking the third person perspective. Now, the third person perspective can either be you yourself in third person, or it could be your role model of yours, right? So, either way, it works. Either way, it works. So, what is the most important thing here is taking that third person perspective, trying to apply it the next time you go through the emotion. So the moment you see, again, knowing the trigger means the next time you actually go through that particular emotion, you know the cause, you are ready for it, and you already know how to handle that particular situation. That's when you become extremely stable, right? Again, like I said, it's not a overnight shift. This is going to take time, right? So if since it's going to take time, do it slowly, keep introspecting, uh, because emotions are something that takes time for you to stabilize, right? So that's about it. Any questions that you would like to ask, you can ask.
Kirtana, you can stop sharing this.
Yes.
Kavita?
Yeah, yes.
So, any questions from your side, participants? They can unmute yourself and then you can ask the questions.
Yeah, any questions you can put in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Or any doubts or clarifications from what I had taught you also, you can ask.
Keep myself well button here.
Yes, yes.
You were talking about the perspectives, whether when it comes for a situation, first person perspective and as well as second person and third person. It has
Yes.
worked out sometimes when it comes for a department head meetings where the head of the operations or head of the HR person who is talking with the first person.
Yes.
Maybe I'll give an example where it is a discussion between a production head and then another maintenance head. Where
Yes.
that maintenance head, production head is saying that maintenance head, the things are not okay, where things are not happening as per the schedule. There is a conversation happening where it's end up where what you are telling is the person who is answering for the maintenance issue is the first person and I may be the second person, correct?
Right.
And as well as third person perspective, whenever we got a complication issues, for say any issues which is related to HR which is happening in the factory, two person who's directly involved in a conversation will have that perspective, first person and second person. Third
Yes.
person perspective, either it can be also one person who is outside who knows me very well. For
Yes,
say
it
Prakash
can
is the
be.
person.
Yeah.
That kind of situation, while we try to understand, while we try to get an opinion or try to get a perspective from a third person, the entire situation may not be they may not be aware, correct?
Correct.
That kind of time, how good it will be for them to suggest or give an opinion for us whether the incident happened is correct or not.
Okay.
Will you
So
feel that? Are you feeling that? Are you saying that it will work out, or what will be the percentage? Maybe 50% or 60%. How it will
okay.
happen when
One
it comes
second.
for
One second.
practicality?
I think there's a small misunderstanding here. What I don't want. I'm not talking about taking someone else's opinion. I'm saying you can think from the other person's position. Okay. So for example, if you were Prakash, okay, what would you tell yourself? If you are going to be Prakash and there are two people here, which one is you, the other one is the operations head, what are you going to be telling yourself? If you were Prakash, what are you going to be telling yourself? In this situation, if you were, if you were personalized as Prakash, what would you do? Right? That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to take another person's opinion at all, because I know it's very tough. Sometimes it's very tough for us to share it to another person, right? Just that you just need
Correct.
to switch your mindset into someone else's. Okay, see, Prakash is this kind of a person who makes this kind of decisions. I'm sorry, I'm just taking your name because he mentioned your name,
Hey, not
Prakash.
a problem, Kirtana. We are friends.
Yeah, yeah. So basically what happens here is, if you feel that he's a person who is very balanced in his emotions, and he is going to be taking such a decision, then you might apply it over there, right? That's what I'm talking about. Whereas I'm talking only about the perspective that you're taking. You don't need to ask another person's opinion. In fact, when you
Yeah,
actually ask him, it might be a different
that case also, I agree. I agree. You
yeah,
are telling that how stable he is, and as well as what kind of decisions which we will make, that
yeah,
kind of thought process which you are asking me to have. But
yeah.
generally, when a kind of an emotion, when a kind of a frustration or a anger which we hold, that kind
Uh-huh.
of time, this kind of things may not happen, is what I feel.
Okay.
If you
Yes, yes,
wanted to
yes,
practice,
definitely.
if there is
No,
anything
no.
sufficient,
It's something which, again, like I told you earlier, after the situation is over, it's going to take a long time. After the situation is over, you might want to stop, you might want to pause, write it down and see how else you could have handled it. That's the only way we can actually take charge of this, because right now we are so it's more like a habit, right? Responding to a certain situation a certain way. Let's say for example, I used to get very very angry. Okay, even now I get very angry, but then the way I show my emotions is a lot different from what it used to earlier. So when a person says something, maybe earlier I used to just spontaneously react and respond, but right now I stop, I see why they're saying something, and then I respond. In fact, if it's not appropriate, I don't respond at all, right? So it's all about it takes a long time, and sometimes what, as you said, during that situation, it's going to be very tough for you to pause and everything. So after the situation is over, especially when you realize, okay, I just had a heated argument with that person, sit down, take a few minutes for yourself, write it down and see how else you could have handled the situation. And or let's say if Prakash was there, how would he have handled the situation, right? That's what you would be doing there. It cannot be done at that point.
okay.
Oh,
Understood. But my personal opinion, my personal feel is that I'm not sure whether this kind of things will happen at is there is anything other than this contributes this kind of exercise per se, whether the age will contribute, whether the experience will contribute, or that kind of things, is it there?
So what will contribute is the self-limiting beliefs will contribute, your mindsets will contribute for sure. But see, the whole thing here is taking the third person perspective. As I said, it's something, it's someone you aspire to become is whose perspective you're going to be taking, right? And if you're going to aspire to be someone, obviously you're going to have a very good opinion about that person, right? So over there, it does make a huge difference. In fact, I would actually request you to try it out and see, exactly the way which I've spoken to you about, wherein you finish after having that heated up conversation, you go back and you just check, what would I have done if this person, I was in this person's position or this person was in my position, right? And then you can actually let me know if it worked or not. In fact, that would be good because at that spur of the moment, it's not going to work. Only if you've been practicing for a while, it will work. But at the initial stage, it's going to take a long time, and you will have to. In fact, switching to the third person perspective is, I think, by far the most effective method that I've seen over the last few years. Right?
Yeah, I do agree. Maybe it may not happen immediately. If you, as you said that,
Exactly.
if you start writing and then mapping what it is happening and how it is happening, how we can control that
Yes.
kind of exercise,
Yes.
we do it as a religiously, then it might help.
In
Then one
fact,
more
3 months,
question which
3
I
to
have.
6 months, I think you should be good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is what the example which I have given is for the person who is at above the level of our hierarchy, above the level of our
Yes.
experience, or that kind of things. It is when it
Yes.
comes for a same teammate, there might be a person who is above the age of us. Maybe I may be the person at the age of 30 who is heading a department. There might be another person who is at the age of 40 who is working under my department.
Yeah.
So when a conversation comes in, when it gets completed, if there is any other way to map out this anger or a frustration to work out the emotion stability?
To map out the other person's emotional stability or yours at that point. I didn't get the question right. I'm
Both the
sorry.
perspective, both the thing which I am asking.
Okay.
Both the things which I am asking. First, say there is a team, okay,
Oh,
where the
yeah.
team is headed by a person who is at the age of 30 or 31. The person in the team who is working below him or who is in his team hierarchy wise, he is not the person maybe at
Right.
assistant manager level or a senior executive level who is
Right.
working under him, but the age is about 10 years difference or 15 years difference.
Yes.
That
Yes.
time we may not control, we may not whatever
Correct.
you say may not happen. That time
Correct.
one thing
Correct.
will happen for you, either it may be angry or it may be a frustration.
Yes.
How to
Yes.
control that person
That
emotion stability is
person.
one question.
I get it. I get it. I get it. So the thing here is, if you're looking at the most important aspect of emotions itself is communication. Whether it's with your child or it's with your teammate, anyone for that matter, communication is very important. So even in fact, when I talk about writing things down, introspecting, it's communicating to yourself, right? So similarly over here, communicating and understanding what your teammate feels is very, very important, right? And over here, you switch to second person perspective when you start recognizing how that person is actually feeling. So supposing the other person is feeling, let's say, low when you shout at him, would you like to feel low if someone else, would you like to be treated the same way is another question you might want to ask, right? So over here, you're going to be looking at the communication aspect. Again, this totally boils down to the organizational culture, right? Because I think that plays a very, very important role. I know a lot of organizations share a very toxic organizational culture, wherein the employees don't really communicate the right things. But it's also about you reading and understanding and how you would feel if you were in their position, right? So that kind of communication and is very important. Again, organization culture is going to play a major role. In fact, that's going to play a more vital role than anything else, right? So this totally boils down to the organizational culture.
Yeah, I do agree. One more thing which I wanted to tell is, for say, இப்போ என் டீம்லயே இருக்காங்க ஒரு டீம்மேட் இருக்காரு, அவரை நான் வந்து திட்டிடுறேன். Where after some time I myself will start feeling okay, என்னடா இது இப்படி திட்டிட்டு அப்படின்னு we ourselves will feel low sometime. And then
Yes.
when I go and ask whether what kind of feel I will apologize seriously, and then I'll ask him if there is anything which is has to be changed from my end, but the feedback session, whatever we have, they are not coming out certain things.
Exactly.
That kind of
Exactly that.
situation, how we have to.
So that I don't think I'll be able to cover in a emotional stability session. We need to look at the organizational culture over there. What is the kind of culture that's going on in the organization? That's very, very, very important. See, let's take for example, if your child is lying to you, won't you understand that somewhere the child is scared of you, or somewhere the child doesn't want to communicate a certain thing to you, right? If the child is constantly repeating, lying to you, it means the child is having fear, or they're not comfortable sharing a certain thing with you, right? Similarly, even in the organization, if an employee is actually lying to you, or not willing to say the truth even about a small thing as to how they feel, right? I think it totally boils down only to the kind of culture that the entire leadership team or the management team has created there. So you might want to check on the organizational culture than actually doing the communication bit, because anyway every person is going to have that baggage as to how they've been treated in the past. So it's very, very important to look at that cultural aspect.
Okay,
You
fine.
might want to change the
Thank you.
cultural processes there. No problem at all.
Yeah, culture is a bigger word which I feel. We cannot change a
Exactly.
culture. HR person cannot change a culture. It should be
It takes a
across the
long time.
organization.
It takes
Everyone
a
has to
long
look into.
Exactly. It takes a long time. And just by one person changing, it doesn't change the entire thing. It's something we have to do very
But
consistently.
one personal feel what I have is that if a team is getting changed because of that ambience itself, because of that factor
Mm,
itself, there is a possibility of other teams also getting changed. So my
exactly.
understanding is try
Yes.
to bring in what kind of culture which we wanted to have as a team, then how it is working out for an organization. Anyway,
Yes. Yes.
nice interaction. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, well. Thank you, well, Panyan, for your question. Keerthana, there is another one question from the participant.
Team, right? 1 second. I think one is how do I control anger and negative
Right.
emotion? And the other one is how come third person perspective thinking helps us to improve our emotion, because it'll be different for different people. Yes. Okay, let me first answer the third person perspective question, because I just spoke about third person perspective. Okay, how does it help us? See, we all feel not everyone feels the same way, okay? Simply put, not everyone feels the same way. What makes me sad need not make you sad. What makes me feel angry need not make you feel angry. Simple. So, if something makes us if we can start taking another person's perspective, what happens is that we will be able to take unbiased decision. So why is third person perspective more important than anything else is because you're not going to see something this close, you're going to see something from this far, which means you're not going to have your baggage when you actually look at that particular situation. You're going to be looking at it from somewhere else, right? So that's where third person perspective is very important. In fact, you can get, I think, very insightful decisions by looking at third person perspective, right? Something that, when you look at something, it could be very, it could feel very trivial. But then when you look at it from a third person perspective, even a trivial thing can be extremely important. So it's very important that that is important. And how does it make it very stable? How does it make your emotions stable? Is that you can start making better decisions. You would know how you could have handled that particular situation. That's why it's very important. I hope that answered the question. How to control anger and negative emotion? Okay, now that as I told you earlier, it will come in the emotional regulation session, and it will come in the mindfulness session. But for now, what I would suggest you to do is for you to understand what makes you get angry and what gives you all those negative emotions. What I would also tell you is please look at what are those thoughts that you have that makes you feel angry and negative, because when you feel angry or any other negative emotion like sadness or fear or frustration or whatever it is, there is a repetitive thought pattern that you have in your mind, and that's constantly visiting you. So you might want to make a note of it and what it is. And if we can interact at the next session, which is happening next Saturday, I think that's on mindfulness. I think you will be able to understand a lot better as to how to control anger and how to channel your anger. I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah, I have another one question, Keerthana.
Yes,
Probably.
yes.
Uh, Generally, see, whenever we HRs work in any organization, there will be some certain situations where we need to really address it, probably
Yeah,
as an HR. So here is a question: how to deal with an employee, especially female, who cries for anything and everything,
yeah.
probably in any situation.
Okay, now see again, like I said, I think one thing which is very important is the communication aspect. Understand why the person is doing a certain thing. Now, there are certain people who can, cry for anything and everything as well. I'm not saying just women. I'm saying anyone for that matter. They can,
Correct.
it sometimes may be genuine, sometimes may not be genuine. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying everyone are not genuine. It totally depends on the person. Now, this, how do we handle it? One, you will have to start looking at the processes with which the organizational culture has been developed, right? And if there has been a very toxic culture, please try to change it. The other thing you can do immediately is to find out little more about, to have a chat with the person, uh, and see what is actually having causing that anger. So if a person starts crying, usually is because they're not able to express it. They have a certain emotion in their mind, or they have a certain thought in their mind. They're not able to express it in their right way. Okay. So if you notice, some people when they're angry, they start tearing up. They start having tears, right? Some people when they are scared, they have tears. Some people when they're sad, they have tears, right? And most of the time, it's only because they're not able to express what it is when they have those tears. So if you can do something by which they can start expressing or start communicating what they want to communicate, then I think that's the best thing that you can do. You can, one hand, you can understand what they're doing, and why they're feeling a certain way. On the other hand, you will also get an answer as to how to handle that person.
Probably you need to say that whenever a person comes like this, we need to make them calm, make them relax, and allow them to speak, or else make them to
Yes,
speak,
yes,
so
yes,
that
yes.
probably they'll be coming out of their thought process, and
Exactly.
probably we can slow down their emotion, and probably will get the correct kind of situation
Yes,
right from them. Okay.
exactly that. Exactly that.
So here another an important question which is happening probably because of COVID now, a lot of
Yes,
HR has to really lay off many employees.
I
Okay.
know that's really sad. Yes.
What is now the situation, how a HR has to really react and act. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
tough situation whenever we were able to go and say to the particular employee that this is your last day, or probably in another 10 days you'll be leaving the company. So how a HR has to understand himself and handle his emotion, at the same time how the communication has to be sent to the person, and also make the person to get stable in terms of when something unfortunate communication is reaching him or her.
Yes, yes. So one thing is, I think as HRs, all of us need to understand this is something which is inevitable, especially at this situation. How much ever we try, few of our organizations, we are going through an inevitable state, right? Wherein few of us are losing a few employees because of this. And although it is sad, we need to first reach an acceptance stage. That's very important, right? The second thing is, if we can, I know a lot of organizations are trying to not lay off people, so I'm not going to talk about those things. I'm going to just talk only about how to deal with the laying off of people. So don't get me wrong on that. The second thing is, we need to have some kind of empathy. The moment we start, I'm sure as HRs, we know a lot of the employees in and out. At least we've had those conversations, and we know at least a little bit about the employees, right? So it's very important to have that sort of empathy, and for them to know that you are there always for them. Although you are laying them off, they need to understand that you're there for them. That kind of support is something that they require, especially in this current scenario, right? So if you can show that kind of a support, that kind of empathy, even when you're talking to them, I think that will be great. That's one thing that actually can help. And I think you spoke about our emotional stability as HRs as well, right? So what we can do is that's where the acceptance thing comes. And what we can also do is we can tell ourselves that this is something, which times will change. We need to be hopeful about it. Sorry, we need to be hopeful about these things, right?
Okay. Another one question. Generally, when the HRs go beyond the top management on getting any kind of approvals,
Yeah.
these top management people will not say that yes or no. They will
Yes.
keep on dragging.
They'll
Okay.
keep dragging. Yes.
We will keep on following them. Okay. So they keep on
Yes.
dragging. We keep on following them. In
Yes.
between, there will be a lot of frustration and
Mm.
anger, or complete why the hell I just want to be an HR. So a lot of
Exactly.
conversations will happen.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
how do an HR or any kind of a person who is in such a position has to handle it?
Mm-hmm. See, I know this is out of the emotional regulation context, but I think it's very important for us to know that when we communicate to someone, if we want it to happen, to show it as a necessity for them, right? And it's more like when you're selling something here, even to your top management, you're trying to sell an idea of yours, right? You're trying to push an idea of yours. So it's very important for you to make them feel that this is necessity for them, this is a necessary thing for them, this is a necessary change for them, this is a necessary policy for them, right? And if we tend to show that importance to them, even when we are following up, even when we are talking to them saying, hey, this is necessary for this, right, then there's a high chance of them actually buying into the idea. Okay,
Okay.
so if they still don't buy into the idea and we are getting frustrated constantly, it's better to pause over there and then say, okay, anyway, this idea is not working. Let me see what I can control. Again, when you go back to what you can control is about how you communicate to them. That's the reason I spoke about the communication aspect. I think last time I spoke about controlling the controllables, the last session. So over here, again, I'll be talking about this even in the next session because this is so vital. You're going to try controlling only what is in your control. So because the decision is going to be made only by the management, we can't do anything much about it, right? The only thing which is in our control is to keep following up, keep doing these things, and keep thinking about the purpose that we have, which is probably bringing in this policy or making other people feel good, whatever it is, right? So that those two things are very important.
Generally, these top management people will never say no. Instead
Yes,
of that, say
they'll
that
just keep
we will, yeah, keep dragging so that we
yes,
need to understand that okay, this is not
it's a
really
no.
helpful.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Fine.
exactly.
Another very important question, which was well started, okay, because Well Pandian started the question. See, when we HR work, we generally majorly categorize industries like IT industry and non-IT industry.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well Pandian is from more of into non-IT industry, and whenever in a non-IT industry, there is a one particular function called industrial relations,
Mm-hmm.
where we need to really handle a lot of people who are like engineers, laborers,
Yes.
or who really are deployed in kind of production and management works.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like we could say like hardworking people in terms of always dealing with machines.
Correct, correct.
These people is not that much exposed or aware to understand the emotions of the other people.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So when these people form a team and really come to an HR for fighting something, they
Mm-hmm.
will not even able to listen whatever we are communicating.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so these people will automatically push that particular individual to be emotionally unstable. Okay.
yes, yes.
In such a stage, how a HR or any person has to be very stable and need
Mm-hmm.
to persuade these kind of people.
Okay, so the first thing over here is for us to understand that their needs are going to be different from ours, right? They are
Right.
going to react in a very different manner from ours. I think, like the other person, I think one doubt which came up wherein he said every person experiences different emotion. Exactly right. Every person experiences different emotions because they have different needs,
Correct.
because their expectations are different. Now, going to the industrial aspect, they're all coming from very, very different backgrounds from ours, right? Again, over here, if we look at empathy and why where their frustration and anger is coming from, I think it will give us an answer as to how we can handle them, right? The again over here, what is very important is they're not going to be communicating very easily because a, there might be a language barrier, b, they may not know how to communicate their needs and wants. But if we can think and look at, if I was in their position, what would I actually require, what would I actually want, right? That'd be great. One thing I've observed from quite a few organizations is that there is a communication gap between the HR and the, let's say the laborers who are working in the industries, right? So if you can try bridging that communication gap, it will be great, right? And for the emotional stability of the HR, I think what is very important is to keep understanding and going through the 3 pointers that I've given, wherein you talk about, you think about what is that emotion that you're going through when you meet them. You look at the triggers, what they did, what did they do that has triggered this kind of an emotion in you. So you look at that, and in fact, what you can do is, the previous situations that you've gone through, if you can recollect, revisit those situations and just see where you could have changed or what has caused this, review that entire situation. I think that will be very helpful for you, because again, every situation can be dealt very differently. But for you to, you literally have to train your mind to think differently. So that's where this particular task helps.
Thank you, Kirtana. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Kavita, over to you.
One more thing. Hello.
Yes.
Kirtana, I have one question here.
Sure.
So here, I just wanted to talk about on the third person's perspective.
Yes.
Okay. So here, being, a matured person, in a HR profession, right? So any HR profession in this matter, we are kind of matured enough to, pause on, certain emotional situations and respond to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So but the problem is when I have to think about third person's perspective, okay, I should have some kind of a history, or I should have been in the similar situation to know, right, how he would have, done that work, right? If I would have known that, these are the best practices, or these are the, way to, handle things in a better way, I would have, done that, in my initial, in my initial stage itself.
Okay.
Correct. Third person perspective is something that you're talking about, the person, maybe my role model or someone, that I, inspired, right? But, the problem is, this is a professional environment where I seriously do not know how he reacted. Okay. So how I could, bring those, the alternative way of, handling things. It cannot be, just one way to handle things, right? It could be multiple ways, but if at all I was thinking, I could not get, multiple ways. Always, I would definitely think that, what I have done is the best, obviously, right?
Let me
what is your
answer
point?
this. I get it. So I'll tell you very simply put. Do you have children?
No.
Okay. So if you see two people fighting, I'm just giving a general example. Let's say you have two people fighting here. Okay. That obviously we are not going to interfere with them, but at the end of it, we as a third person, if you're going to look at two people fight, what would we think? Oh, why are they fighting for this? Right? We would have our own opinions and we would have our own ways of handling that situation, although we would have never handled that situation at all. Right? That's the third person perspective I'm talking about. See, when you are outside of a problem, whether you actually handle that problem or not, you're going to be looking at it from a very, 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 very different way. You're going to be looking at it in a totally different way.
But that need not to be a best practice, isn't it?
Need
I think
not
I'm lost.
be. It depends on. Hello?
So she has some connectivity problem.
Okay, she has some connectivity problem, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, good. So see, the thing here is it just gives you a different perspective. That's what happens there, and most of our decisions change in terms of perspectives. That's the only thing I was talking about.
Yeah, but that need not to be best alternate, right? So what we are looking for is a best alternative for that particular emotional situation. So yes, I'm trying to be stable, but sometimes we go out of control. So I know to handle such a situation or to be calm. So what are the other alternatives that I should
Okay,
come across? Yes,
let me
third
tell
person
you.
perspective.
Okay, let me tell you this. See, you don't want any result given in 2 minutes, right? You know that's not going to be permanent, You want something
Right.
like an emotional stability to be something which is permanent and etched in your brain, that even when a crisis comes, you are able to handle it extremely stably, right? So this exercise, you may not, like I was telling earlier, this may not happen overnight. This is not something which will happen overnight, but in the long run, let's say within 6 months to 1 year, you're going to be extremely emotionally stable and you're going to be independent. You're not going to need another person's help for this, right? And that's what all of us are aiming to become. So this is more of a sustainable permanent solution that I'm giving. It's not something which is short lived.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So I'll just like come in over here.
Shantaram, your voice is not audible.
Can I come in?
Shantaram, your voice is not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, based on the, so usually I get
So,
the
I can't hear
emotional.
you.
a lot of background noises.
There's a lot of noise. Yeah.
Can you please text your question?
Okay, if you don't mind, can this be the last question?
Yeah, definitely. This is the last question. It's already
Yeah.
beyond time.
Yeah.
Shantaram, can you text your question?
Can you hear me now?
So again, we have some problems.
No, there's some
A lot of
noise.
background noises. So can you please text your question? Probably, I think. Okay, fine. I will ask another one question which has reached me now. So
Sure.
probably emotionally stability, how to maintain. So how to maintain the emotional stability? Say for example, there is a situation where a presentation needs to be done, and when other teams are also asked to do the presentation, we need to collate it and do it. Probably it's a
Right.
kind of a presentation kind of thing where we need to really coordinate and collate and need to do the presentation. So in such
Yeah.
a case, probably we'll be having a lot of last minute work, 11th hour work. And this particular point of time, how we need to really calm, we need to stay focused and then need to deliver the presentation.
Right. Okay, so this is more of emotional regulation, if I were to say. So do you, it, I don't know whether emotional stability will come in place here. So what I would like to tell is over here in this part, in case if it's going to be emotional stability, then understand what emotion you're going through. Could be fear, could be anger or frustration, depending on what situation is. And once that's happened, you obviously know the trigger because you know the situation as such. So understand the trigger and start working on the previous experiences. Look at the consequences. So as I said, when I said journal, right? I said journal earlier. So you can write down what had happened in the past, and you see similar kind of situations, and you see how else you can handle that particular situation, and look at the consequences of it. And that's very
Okay.
important. So looking at the consequence is actually making you give literally like an incentive for you to behave a certain way, right? Because if let's say you're giving a presentation and you're a person who gets angry very often while giving a presentation or something like that, when you go back, when you look back and you're introspecting and you're writing your journal, you say, okay, I got angry last time, so this time I'm going to behave this way. And when that happens, you also look at the consequence. Okay, if I don't get angry or if I don't respond this way, then I'm going to be having this consequence, right? A positive consequence. And if I am going to be behaving in a negative manner, I'm going to be having a negative consequence, right? So when you give yourself that consequential incentive, the incentive of, okay, this is going to be the consequence, what happens is you end up behaving a certain way. Most of us behave in a negative manner because we don't know the end result. We don't know the consequence yet. And we always want only positive consequences. So that will slowly start changing. I'm not saying the first time you get it, it's going to be right. No, it will slowly start changing. And I think in the mindfulness session, I'm going to be talking about how you can see those changes, how you can be aware of those changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Keerthana.
Thank you very
Satya,
much.
over to you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you everyone who joined and asked really nice question. And today's section was like, it's a very good takeaway we have from this, because emotional stability being a very important topic for all the HRs to have good insight about. Thank you so much for everyone for taking your time to attend the section, and also for the wonderful speaker, Keerthana Swaminathan. Thank you so much. And we will meet in the next section on Saturday, the same timing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keerthana. Thank you.